So we're here this morning with Samit Singh, all the way from New Jersey, who's going to be sharing with us a little bit about Decentralized News Network. He's the CEO of that company. I'm Rebecca Hope from Block News. Really excited to talk about your project this morning. And yeah, it would just be great if you could share with us to start the overall vision of the project.
So what we're building with DNN is a decentralized and censorship-resistant news network on top of the blockchain, specifically Ethereum. And actually, the reason this whole thing started, it was during the U.S. presidential election when we noticed a pretty high degree of polarization in the mainstream media. You had the likes of CNN, Fox, so on and so forth, basically pandering to their audiences. And there's always been a certain degree of polarization and distrust in the mainstream media, but now it's like, when you really look at the statistics, it's alarming. Currently trust levels in the U.S. and even around the globe are at a historical low when it comes to people basically having faith in mainstream media to accurately and faithfully deliver facts. So it was around that time that my co-founder Dondre and I got the idea for DNN. And we started thinking about how we could build it out on Ethereum and scale it out accordingly. So we spent roughly a year conceptualizing everything, writing the white paper, building out a very early stage alpha to put on the Ethereum testnet. And so really the vision of this whole operation is to deliver accurate news for the public interest, news that is transparent, that everyone can see sort of like what went into each article that a writer wrote, and how an article was constructed, while fully reading something that's very balanced, more so than what you get in mainstream media.
Right.
So yeah.
So that is a big problem, and I see that you do that in kind of a democratic format where
Yes.
the community votes what is good
Correct.
and what's bad, right?
Yep.
Could you run us through that and what the technology actually does?
Sure. So simply put, let's say you're a writer. So basically you would spin up an article, some piece of content, and you would submit it to the network. And that article would go through a review process through a randomized set of reviewers on the network. And these reviewers then sort of go back and forth on reviewing the article according to the network's editorial guidelines. So if the article gets rejected, it gets sent back to you, the writer, with detailed feedback from each reviewer over why it was rejected and how you can resubmit it. And if it gets published, it gets published onto the blockchain, and from there it's consumable for readers without the risk of ever being taken down or tampered with by any third-party entity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and why is this, just from a zoomed out perspective, why do you think this is so important now more than ever?
Yeah, so first and foremost, like I said earlier, we have always had this, massive distrust with media, and now it's getting worse by worse on almost like a month-by-month basis. It's pretty bad. And,
because basically those with the budgets to advertise are the ones that are reaching the people, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And it's also coinciding with a very interesting time right now in the tech world where you have blockchain, which is really like the elephant in the room right now. Everyone talks about it. Everyone wants to get into it. The blockchain industry is like buzzing because of all the hype. So it's coinciding with a lot of projects building on top of the blockchain and just fueling that fire even more. So I think we're just in a very a good time to sort of be building something like this. There is this massive level of distrust in the mainstream media on one hand. It's growing blockchain industry on the other hand, and a lot of people gaining awareness about crypto. So it's like I like to think that we're at a time when these two things are intersecting.
Would you how would you then scale this? Would you integrate this kind of technology in already existing systems, or try acquire new users, or how would it work?
Yeah, so we've definitely thought about this a lot. Initially, we want to be an all-encompassing platform, sort of like an ecosystem for third-party developers to further build on, so we can sort of become our own entity. But in the future, I think it would be hugely fascinating to also integrate our review process, our tech, into third-party systems as well, sort of like licensing out to other media companies. Let's say maybe a Wall Street Journal, for example, wants some additional layer of fact-checking done for their news. It can go through DNN's network and review process, which if it works the way we plan for it to work, it could work out very well for a lot of these third-party articles coming through. So they sort of get this DNN stamp of approval, so to speak, and then be published on their own network. So I think licensing our tech could be a very interesting approach as well.
What other partners are you looking to? You said like Wall Street Journal. What other partners do you think you would team up with?
I think initially it would be more realistic to say that we could team up with smaller to mid-sized media entities and then grow up to entities like the Wall Street Journal and BBC, Al Jazeera, et cetera, et cetera. But initially, I think we would have to start sort of like in baby steps with definitely smaller, more independent news organizations.
So how long has this been in operation for?
The company's all, I think so it's been roughly 2 years now.
Okay. And what kind of progress have you already seen in those 2 years?
Well, so far we've seen quite a bit of buzz and hype surrounding what we're doing right now in terms of like people want it. Now I can fully say, with confidence that we're building something that people are really craving, that people need. We put our alpha out on the COVID testnet specifically. This was last summer, I believe, and it's well over like 3,000 transactions in the network now. So it's like all up and running and working, and people are using it. We get a lot of community feedback on a daily basis, whether it's through Twitter or Slack channel or Telegram, and it's been interesting to see the reactions from people.
So what kind of reactions have you been seeing, and what kind of challenges have you already identified?
Yep. So this is where it gets really interesting. Like we have like a sort of like split when it comes to reactions in the Western world, in Europe and North America. People care more about fake news because we deal with it on a daily basis. The media tends to twist things out of proportion quite a bit, so that's a big pain point for for people in our market. The whole fake news aspect. So that's sort of our pitch to our potential users in the Western markets. In the Eastern markets, it's very different actually. What we've noticed, and this is where it gets really fascinating because people care a little less about the fake news aspect and a little more about the censorship aspect. Because in markets like China, it's tough to even access the news in the first place, let alone having balanced news. So censorship seems to be more of like a play for us in the Eastern markets, like China, Turkey, so forth. And so I like to think that we strike a balance and we appeal to both markets.
Right.
By virtue of being on the blockchain, it does that censorship. And again, in terms of what we're doing with our review process, there's also the aspect of filtering out fake.
Now, this is it's a kind of not just quantitative, right? You've also got the human aspect of it, which makes it quite challenging because, what is fake and what is real? How do you address that kind of issue?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we also don't necessarily like to say that, that DNN's news will be 100% authentic because, again, like your definition of fake may differ from my definition of fake. It's all relative. A lot of times fake news is something that maybe you see something in an article that you don't like, and it's fake news too that's technically not fake news. It's just something that you don't like. So we also, prefer to say that, we want our news to be as accurate as possible, but certain times things may slip through the cracks every now and then. It's definitely possible, but in terms of like what we think of as being fake is something that's containing information that's blatantly false and unproven.
Right, so proof. So it's based on proof, basically.
Yep, based on proof, sources, factual authenticity.
Okay. Okay, and then tell us a bit about the technology and how it's designed, from a technical aspect, and how it can be scalable, and how it will adapt as you evolve in the future.
Yeah, so currently we're building everything on top of Ethereum, and we saw that we initially for a while we thought what would be best in terms of like how to build it. Would it be best to maybe build our own blockchain, host it on Ethereum, or maybe fork Ethereum? But we decided that it would be far easier to just directly, for now, build it on Ethereum because Ethereum is already very scalable. It does have its issues right now, but their roadmap and everything, they're growing very fast. So we do anticipate the network as a whole will also scale in line with us. So far, the easiest blockchain to sort of build something on and bootstrap. It gave us everything we need to build our token as well. So other than that, we're also using Swarm, and all the article data is stored in there. So it's like essentially our architecture is already quite decentralized, unlike a lot of other dApps right now that are just building glorified web apps. And so in terms of long-term scaling, a lot of it, I guess, will depend on Ethereum itself as well and the other tools that are being built. Like Raiden is one such tool that can help you handle a lot of transactions off-chain. So that's another potential solution if things get really crazy on DNN. in terms of like just the high volume of transactions. I guess there is certainly potential for having a high volume of transactions early on, considering there's a lot of parties involved on our network. Ultimately, I would say our goal is to build our own blockchain and be in like full control of our own chain and host DNN on that, and just be blockchain agnostic and have it work with all these other blockchains.
Blockchain agnostic, that's a good one.
Yeah.
The monetary gain here, where are you actually making money?
Yeah. So I would say one potential revenue stream down the line would be, as I told you earlier, the licensing of detected third parties. But more immediately, it would come from the token itself. So the way our token works for DNN is we think of it a lot like a membership. Like you need to have the token to even participate in the network. Like writers need a token, readers need the token, reviewers need the token. Everyone sort of needs it. It's like a true utility. You need it for access and for conducting various actions in the network. And basically, from all these transactions, we take a cut of those transactions, and those tokens go back into company holdings.
How would it work percentage-wise? For example, if there's a article that's published,
Yep.
if say 40% of feedback is complaints, would it be taken down, or what's the line?
So we always count 51% as like obviously being the majority. So if an article does get published and enough readers sort of flag it, at least what we're thinking of doing is adding like sort of disclaimer for the reader to see on the article saying, hey, this was flagged by such and such percentage of readers. Just read at your own risk. Know that it's not fully accurate because it's being flagged. But if enough readers flag it, it would go back into the review process for a secondary look. And if it gets rejected, then the article will probably get taken down from the network. But if it gets revised and accepted, it will be republished with reflecting the new data. But the beauty of this is since it's just from the blockchain, the user can see the entire like revision history of the article and see exactly what got changed and why. So it's also super transparent at the same time.
So your management team, are they all based in New Jersey as well?
Yeah, so my co-founder and I work together. We're both in Jersey. Then we have developers spread out from Serbia. And then our advisory board is pretty much a mix, very international, mix of people from Europe, Asia, and US.
How many reviewers do you currently have?
So currently in the network, we have a little over 2,000 people registered as reviewers. But like at the same time, we also don't differentiate between like who's a reviewer, who's a reader, who's a writer. Anyone can be either or. But we do track like in terms of like people who switch roles. But you can be anything you want essentially.
How do you verify that those reviewers? Do you verify their identity and their experience, their education, their background?
So that's something we're definitely thinking about for the future in terms of like how to judge reviewer competency. For now, we're actually relying more on like how the blockchain itself works, and everything is rooted in game theory. So if you're a reviewer and you want to review an article, you have to put up a stake of DNN tokens. So we think from like a psychological perspective, that makes you more inclined to act for the better of the network because you're putting up something financial at stake, something that you can lose. So basically, as a reviewer, you put up this bid, this security deposit of sorts of tokens, which gives you the right to review articles. So once you put forth that security deposit and review an article, you could either earn those tokens back and more as reward if the article gets rejected or accepted. But you can also lose those tokens if you act out of line and don't act for the network, or if you're attempting to collude with other reviewers and we detect that. So what we're thinking is like this whole set of like financial incentives and penalties will get you to act accordingly and act in line. So at the same time, when you're putting something at stake that's financial, you're also staking your own competency as a reviewer, saying, hey, I have the confidence to review these articles because I'm actually putting something of actual value on
Right. Do you think it's important though that the reviewers have a certain level of education or some sort of clearance, some sort of background check? I see that a lot of websites are doing that lately. I know Upwork is doing that. It's quite intense. Thumbtack is doing that. And the sign-up process is really intense. It's like social security number, utility bill. And not just one, all of them.
To entry, like especially asking for all that information and giving like social security like centralized companies, it's just, like not a good idea in general. I'm not even like opposed to the idea. It just depends on how frictionless we can make the whole process and how easy we can make it in the future. But for now, we're more just like relying on the token to sort of like govern a lot of that psychological behavior and see how that works. Like Wikipedia, I think, is a very interesting example. Like we talk about this all the time. like Wikipedia itself, and of course it's not perfect. It does face accusations every now and then of like liberal bias, but overall they've done a phenomenal job of giving you information that is accurate and as balanced as can be. And it's something in theory that shouldn't work, but it does. And these people aren't even incentivized. It's just people all around the world just coming together to review articles, write content, and it works. So I feel like that model has also been like an inspiration for us, and we can continue to see how they sort of like do what they do.
Although, we agree that Wikipedia is not a trustworthy source. You can't put that in a thesis, right? Would it be able to be used as a reliable source, And
that's the goal, yeah.
That's the goal. So, like, for example, in a thesis, like a university thesis, that's, I guess, the highest academic, verification.
We want to, be really reliant on the sources that they're using. And these sources are also something we want to have the community vote on over time, like what makes a good source and what makes a bad, unreliable source. And, we also want to, like, sort of get people in that mindset to, like, really dig deeper into the sources and use sources that are historically reliable and accurate and balanced in terms of their content. So, like, we're very, at least right now, in this current iteration of the product, we're trying to be very, like, source heavy and kind of, like, this aspect of, like, evidence-based journalism. Proof. Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So would you have a core team of people, or would that be kind of an automated thing where any article would go through a verification of where was this sourced, or what is it? You obviously want to also allow for some opinion, but
exactly. This is where it's interesting, because if we have a core team, like, and we've thought about it, we've thought about having like we probably will have like a core editorial team that'll help govern like the initial guidelines and rules, so to speak. But at the same time, you don't want to keep it that way forever, because then it's centralized and it's not democratic. And like you said, it doesn't leave enough room for opinion on like what should change and what can change as far as like editorial guidelines are concerned. So over time, once we have something established, we'd like to even have the community vote on like changes to the editorial guidelines.
Do you think that this will be a big challenge going forward? Is deciding on what is that setup? What are the protocols? How is something decided as,
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a huge challenge going forward, and we have to sort of like, as we scale the project further, decide like, how community voting would work around changes or amendments in the guidelines. Like, this is all stuff we've thought about, but yeah, it's definitely not going to be easy to tackle. Luckily, we also have a lot of people in our advisory group who specialize in things like democratic consensus and decentralized voting mechanisms. So it definitely should be an interesting issue to tackle.
I think every company is undergoing that, even with Uber or Airbnb with a 5-star rating. They're starting to see, okay, that's not the only way that people should be verified, because most people just give a 5-star rating, right?
Yeah.
So we have to look at different models. Are you doing that, constantly looking at different models of
even in terms of our own review process? Yes, actually, like even it's sort of like with what I told you how our review process works. Nothing's really set in stone right now at all. Like, we're still working on like 3 or 4 different iterations for how it would work overall. So it could be vastly different once we hit mainnet, for all we know.
The system design is huge. It's good to know that somebody wants to have verified and reliable a source of news. And so it was great talking with you. Really hope for the best. What can I do now as a user?
Yeah, so currently, if you go on dnn.media or crowdsale.dnn.media, we're already hosting like a lot of top stories, mostly crypto right now. We do want to branch out to other categories of news down the line. Right now, like, a lot of our demand from readers has come okay, we want to see news about crypto. So currently, we are hosting top stories written by our writers, correlation with the sources they used. And it's just like, it's very early, but it's there right now. So it's like you can sort of like see it on the site already, like top stories that are already there.
Should I then click on those stories and vote, or what do I do?
So right now, these are stories that are already published. And in terms of like voting on stories or reviewing stories, we have like a wait list developed for our alpha right now. So it's pretty easy for anyone to like sort of just submit us their email, and then we sort of like just let them into the alpha and see it, the current inner workings of everything.
So I can sign up as a reviewer.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think I'm going to do that. This is Decentralized News Network, content curated by the community, headed by Samit Singh, all the way in New Jersey, and wishing you all the best. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yep, thank you.